She was just a quiet dishwasher in the back of a prestigious culinary school, until one arrogant celebrity chef mocked her in front of everyone. But what he didn't know was, she had once been a world-class cooking prodigy who disappeared without a trace. What happens next will leave an entire room speechless, and a legend reborn in silence. This is the story of Eva Moreno, the quiet flame. Watch the video until the end and enjoy the storyline. The scent of rosemary and roasted garlic hung heavy in the kitchen air, clinging to the tile walls and stainless steel counters like a second skin. Pots clanged in the distance, knives tapped rapidly against cutting boards, and a voice barked orders in French-accented English from the demonstration stage. But in the far corner, just past the reach of the overhead lighting, a young woman stood hunched over a sink filled with cloudy water and the remains of someone else's creativity. Eva Moreno scrubbed in rhythm. Plate, rinse, dry, stack. Her black apron was damp, her hands pruned and raw from hours in soap, but her face remained calm, almost serene. The only thing that betrayed the intensity behind her dark eyes was the way her fingers occasionally flexed, like they missed holding something sharper than a sponge. "Dishwasher girl," someone snickered behind her. Eva ignored it. She always did. Across the kitchen floor, laughter and chatter bubbled among culinary students dressed in their crisp white coats. It was the semi-final day for the Silver Oak Culinary Competition, and the entire school buzzed with nervous energy. The grand prize, a fast-track apprenticeship at Maison Reynard in Paris, Michel Reynard's flagship restaurant, and the dream of nearly everyone in that room. Everyone except Eva. She hadn't signed up. She hadn't cooked here, not once, in 2 years of working the back corners. That was the deal. Stay invisible. Stay safe. "Yo, Ava!" A familiar voice called out. She turned, instantly recognizing Luca Park, one of the youngest and most popular students in the school. His head was a mop of dark curls, his uniform smudged with saffron and soy, a tray balanced in his hands, wobbling slightly. "You look like you haven't blinked in an hour," he said, offering a boyish grin. Ava dried her hands and reached for the tray. "You're using too much reduction. The glaze is bleeding into the garnish." Luca blinked. "Wait, seriously? Crap." He looked at the dish like it had betrayed him. "Thanks, I'll rep late." As he turned, a shadow loomed near the center of the room. The kitchen hushed like someone had pressed pause. Chef Michel Reynard had arrived. All black, no apron, just a tailored suit with a silver pin in the shape of a knife on his lapel. His expression was sculpted from marble, and his accent was thick as Béarnaise. Behind him, 2 cameramen hovered like flies, broadcasting his every breath for his YouTube cooking empire. He scanned the room slowly, like a lion selecting a target. When his gaze landed on Ava, he frowned. "What's this?" he asked. "A cleaning lady among chefs?" Laughter echoed. Ava's lips stayed still. Luca shifted uncomfortably beside her. "She's a dishwasher," someone said too loudly. Michel walked forward, inspecting her like she was a smudge on his countertop. "Do you wash better than you cook, mademoiselle?" Ava looked him in the eye. "I wouldn't know. I haven't cooked in a while." "Oh," he said, the amusement flickering behind his voice. "Perhaps you should. Entertain us. We could all use a laugh before real cooking begins." He snapped his fingers. An apron appeared, held out by an assistant. "Show us your technique. A basic bechamel, perhaps? Or will you drown it like these plates?" Luca stepped forward, flustered. "Chef Reynard, with all respect. She's not a student, yes. Michel waved dismissively. "But she has opinions. I heard her advise you, so let's see. Let her cook, or let her be silent." Ava stared at the apron. Her throat felt tight. Her hands twitched not with fear, but with muscle memory. Luca looked at her, eyes searching. "You don't have to." But something inside her shifted. She'd spent 2 years pretending to be no one, but her mother's voice still echoed sometimes. "You cook with heart, mihija. That fire doesn't just go out." She reached for the apron. "Fine," Ava said, quietly but clearly. "I'll cook." The apron felt heavier than it looked. Not because of the fabric, but because of the eyes. Dozens of them, all fastened to Eva Moreno as if she were some kitchen curiosity pulled from storage. She stepped up to the demo station, hands steady, expression unreadable. Overhead, a camera zoomed in with a mechanical whir, its lens capturing every inch of her plain black t-shirt and faded jeans. "This is ridiculous," a student muttered from the back. Chef Michel Reynard clasped his hands behind his back. "You have 5 minutes. Make a bechamel. Show us your interpretation." Ava scanned the prep table. Butter, flour, milk, salt, and nutmeg. Everything where it should be, except her thoughts. They were back in her childhood kitchen in Queens, where her mother used to hum rancheras and fry plantains at the same time. She inhaled slowly, then moved, butter into the pan, melting smooth like satin. She adjusted the flame by instinct, the temperature not too high, not too low. Her spoon moved with practiced grace, gentle circles, just enough to coat the base. Flour followed, sifted with an even hand. The paste began to bloom. The room stayed quiet, even the usual clatter of pans softening into silence. Luca watched from the side, arms folded, eyes wide. He leaned toward another student. "Look at her wrist. See how she stirs?" The roux darkened slightly, just golden. Ava grabbed the warm milk, but instead of pouring it straight in, she reached for the bay leaf and a single clove-studded onion. "What is she doing?" someone whispered. "She's infusing the milk," Luca replied, his voice tinged with awe. Michelle's lips parted slightly. He didn't speak. Ava didn't rush. She strained the infused milk, incorporated it bit by bit, always stirring in slow, deliberate arcs. The sauce thickened, clung to the spoon, smooth as silk. Then she added the final touch, freshly grated nutmeg and a small pinch of sea salt. She dipped a tasting spoon in, took a small sip, then nodded. No drama, no flourish, just precision. The smell was intoxicating. Warm, creamy, comforting, but with depth. It was the kind of bechamel that didn't just sit on a plate, it invited memory. Chef Reynard cleared his throat. "Done?" he asked. Ava stepped back. "You tell me." A sous chef stepped forward, took a taste, then passed the spoon to Reynard. He hesitated a beat too long, then tasted. For a split second, just one, his brows lifted. His jaw shifted like he might say something. Then he masked it. "Acceptable," he said stiffly. "A surprising result." The student stared at him, then at Ava. She untied the apron. "That's all?" Michelle asked, half smirking. "No flair? No reduction? No signature?" Ava shrugged. "Sometimes you don't need noise to speak." Luca grinned behind his hand. Michelle tried again. "Very well. Let's raise the bar. Since you enjoy surprises, perhaps you'd like to join the final round." The room buzzed. "What?" Ava blinked. Michelle gestured to the covered tray that had just been wheeled in mystery ingredients. A staple of competition finals. "Create a dish. 20 minutes. Let's see if your instincts carry you beyond milk and flour." Students murmured. Phones came out. Cameras clicked. Luca stepped forward. "You don't have to do this." Ava looked at the tray, looked at Michelle, and then at her own hands. Small calluses lined her fingers. A faint scar near her wrist from a kitchen burn. They weren't the hands of a dishwasher. They never were. "I know," she said softly. "But maybe I want to." She tied the apron back on, this time without hesitation. The silver domes lifted with a flourish. Underneath them, live scallops still nestled in their shells, enoki and chanterelle mushrooms, lemongrass, kaffir lime leaves, a tiny jar of saffron, miso paste, and a handful of microgreens. A blend of east and west. Elegant, tricky. Ava's eyes scanned the lineup. She didn't blink. Michel folded his arms. 20 minutes begins now. A loud beep from the timer overhead signaled the countdown, and the kitchen burst into motion. The students formed a half circle, leaning in to see what she would do. Luca stood at the front, arms crossed tight, his expression unreadable. Ava moved fast. She cracked the scallops open with a single clean twist, preserving the integrity of the meat. The precision stunned a few students nearby. Only someone with advanced knife skills could do that so cleanly. She removed the roe, cleaned the shell, and began separating the best pieces with reverence. Then she reached for the mushrooms, brushing them gently, not rinsing. Water kills their flavor, something any seasoned chef knew. But what caught people off guard was what she did next. She pulled a saucepan forward, added butter and miso, then seared the mushrooms over low heat. The kitchen filled with an earthy, umami scent. "She's not just cooking," Luca muttered under his breath. "She's composing." As the timer ticked down, Ava sliced lemongrass, bruised it with the back of her knife, and infused it in a light broth with the scallop trimmings. A stock, quick, but precise. 10 minutes left. Chef Reynard leaned forward, now silent. Ava's hands moved in rhythm, pan-searing the scallops briefly, basting with butter and saffron, the golden hue soaking into the edges like light bleeding into dawn. She pureed the sautéed mushrooms with her lemongrass broth, creating a velvety base, plated the scallop at its center, and added microgreens tossed lightly in citrus. She wasn't cooking to impress. She was cooking to express. With a final flick of her wrist, she set the dish forward just as the buzzer rang. Michel stepped forward slowly, as if unsure of what he might find. The dish shimmered under the lights, balanced, elegant, but not pretentious. It looked like something you'd find at a 3-Michelin-star restaurant, and yet it still held warmth, like a meal someone's mother might make, if she happened to be a culinary genius. Michel picked up the fork. Everyone held their breath. He took one bite, paused, then two. He set the fork down. Slowly, the silence stretched long enough to feel like a verdict. Finally, he turned to the students. "Does anyone know who this is?" Nobody answered, until a deep voice spoke from the back. "I do." Heads turned. A man in a faded chef's coat stepped forward, his eyes fixed on Ava. He looked like he'd just seen a ghost. "That's Ava Moreno," he said. "She was the youngest finalist in the Barcelona World Culinary Open. 12 years ago." A murmur spread. Michel's mouth parted slightly. "You competed in Barcelona?" Ava exhaled. "I was 17. Luca turned to her in disbelief. "You were? Wait, you were that Ava Moreno? The girl with the empanada foam," the man added. "You disappeared. Nobody knew where you went." Ava removed her apron. Her hands were still, her voice steady. "I stopped cooking professionally when my mom died. That was the last dish she ever tasted." And just like that, the room fell into silence again. Not the awkward kind, but the reverent kind. Michel Reynard, for once, said nothing. He just looked at her, not like a dishwasher, not like a joke, but like a rival. Ava stood by the prep table, her shoulders squared but her chest tight, as if the act of speaking her mother's death aloud had cracked something open. The culinary school's kitchen had never felt so quiet. Even the ovens seemed to hush, their hum suddenly reverent. Chef Michel Reynard studied her, his usual aloofness replaced by something more human. Curiosity, perhaps, or a quiet recognition of pain. From the crowd, Luca stepped forward. His eyes shimmered, not with pity, but respect. "You told me you just washed dishes," he said, almost laughing. "You mentored half the room with one plate." Ava gave him a faint smile. "I didn't lie. I do wash dishes." Michel cleared his throat. "And yet, you plate like a Parisian ghost." He gestured toward her dish, still steaming gently under the overhead light. "What do you call this?" She thought for a moment. "Brisa del Sur, Southern Breeze." My mother's name was Sol. This was the way she cooked, gracefully, but with depth. Michel didn't respond right away. Instead, he turned to the students. "This woman," he began slowly, "understood a secret that many of you have not yet learned. Technique is important, ingredients essential, but cooking, real cooking, is about memory." A hush followed. He turned back to Ava. "You're not in this competition." "No," she said, But you should be. I'm not here to win, she replied, softer now. I'm here to remember why I ever loved this. Michelle hesitated. Then teach us. The invitation stunned her. And not just her, several students looked equally shocked. Michel Reynard never shared his stage, never offered praise, let alone humility. Before Ava could answer, the back door creaked open, and a tall boy with a mop of black curls ran in, cheeks flushed, wearing a school backpack far too large for his frame. "Emmy!" he called. Ava's heart lifted. "Mateo?" He ran up and clutched her waist, breathless. "I finished early," he said, looking around at the crowd. "Whoa, are you cooking?" Ava knelt, brushing his bangs from his forehead. "Only a little." Michelle's eyes narrowed. "Your brother, my son," she said simply. "Well, half-brother. But I raised him." A silence swept the room. Luca blinked. Michelle's eyebrows arched. She stood, her voice firmer now. "That's why I disappeared. After our mom died in a fire, I had to choose. I chose him." Michelle stepped back, nodding slowly, the arrogance draining from his expression. "And you kept your hands in the fire, just not for us to see." Ava shrugged. "Some flames are quieter." Luca looked at her, the disbelief still lingering in his face. "You trained alone all these years?" "No," she said, smiling at Mateo. "I trained every night in our apartment kitchen, making pancakes, dumplings, rice and beans, sometimes steak when we had enough." Michelle exhaled. "Then you have trained more honestly than most." A knock sounded at the side door. A man in a gray suit entered, holding a clipboard. "I'm sorry to interrupt," he said, "but we're from Cuisine and Beyond. We were supposed to film Chef Reynard's segment." Michelle turned to the camera crew, then pointed at Ava's dish. "Film her instead." The overhead camera zoomed in, capturing the steam that curled like silk above Ava's plate. Her scallop dish sat under studio lighting now, not just kitchen fluorescence. A boom mic hovered just inches from her head. She hated this feeling, the spotlight. It wasn't just hot. It was loud, suffocating. Flashbacks whispered around her ears like ghosts. Applause, judges' critiques, the hard click of cameras during her last international appearance. That day in Barcelona had burned her out in a way no stove ever could. "Is this okay?" asked the camera woman, checking the angle. "Chef Reynard said your story should lead the next episode." Ava blinked. "I'm not a chef." The woman laughed gently. "You're more chef than half the people he's shouted at." Luca approached, notebook in hand. "They want to call the episode The Hidden Flame. I think it fits." She smirked faintly. "Sounds dramatic." "You're kind of dramatic," he said, nudging her. Before she could respond, Mateo tugged on her sleeve. "They said I could stand next to you on camera. You okay with that?" Ava looked down at him, the kid she'd fed through ramen budgets and gas station burritos. His eyes sparkled. So did his braces. "Yeah," she said softly. "That sounds perfect." As the crew set up, Chef Michelle came to her side, arms folded loosely. Gone was the theatrical bravado. This Michelle seemed humbled. "You realize," he said, "that if this goes live, people will remember." "I never asked them to forget," Ava replied. "I just needed space." Michelle nodded. "Still, you could return, open a restaurant, write a book, host a show." She looked at the cameras, then at Mateo, then back at Michelle. "I don't want to return to that world," she said. "Not like before. I don't want my success measured in ratings or critics. I want it measured in smiles at the table, meals that matter, one plate at a time." Michelle was quiet for a moment. Then he offered a rare smile. "Then perhaps, you're finally cooking for the right reason." Just then, the crew called out, "Ready in 5, Chef Ava." She froze. Chef Ava. The name stung with both memory and hope. She exhaled. "Can I bring someone with me?" They nodded. Ava reached for Mateo's hand, and together they stepped in front of the camera. Later that night, after the lights were packed away and the kitchen returned to its normal rhythm, Ava sat on the bench outside the school. Luca joined her, 2 coffees in hand. Thought you could use something warm. She accepted it gratefully. You okay? He nodded. Are you? She thought for a long moment. Not yet, but cooking again. It felt right. You were incredible. Thanks, she said, then added, so were you. You have a good palate. Luca chuckled. I had a good teacher. She sipped the coffee. Hey, there's something I didn't tell you. Oh, that sauce. The one I made during the bechamel round? Yeah, it wasn't the best one I've ever made. He laughed. Seriously, the best one I've ever made was 2 weeks ago. Mac and cheese. Mateo had a bad math test, and I let him pick dinner. Luca grinned. You're a mystery, Ava Moreno. Not really, she said. I'm just a woman who finally remembered why she started. The morning after the episode aired, Ava's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Mentions, messages, missed calls from unknown numbers. Even her email, an account she hadn't checked in weeks, was full of requests. Interviews, guest spots, even an invitation to judge a televised cooking contest in Italy. Are you famous now? Mateo asked, chomping cereal in their tiny kitchen, crumbs dotting his shirt. Ava glanced at the screen. I guess. He paused. Are we moving to a mansion? She laughed, flicking a cornflake off his shoulder. We're staying here. Fame doesn't mean better. It just means louder. Mateo squinted at her. That sounds like something from a fortune cookie. She winked. It's true. The truth was, Ava wasn't sure what to do next. The storm she had carefully stepped into was now swelling with offers, expectations, noise. Everyone wanted something, her story, her skills, her comeback. But she hadn't come back. She'd stepped out, yes, but she hadn't promised to stay. Her phone rang again. This time, it was a New York number. She let it go to voicemail. Outside, the city breathed around them. Vendors shouted. Buses hissed. Pigeons fought over bagel scraps. A knock sounded on the door. When she opened it, Luca stood there, holding a to-go box and wearing a sheepish grin. I made something, he said. It's probably trash. Be honest. She took the box, popped the lid, and inhaled. Dashi, with caramelized onion, he said nervously. Thought it might balance the depth with sweetness. She tasted it, paused, then looked up. It's good. Better than good. He sighed in relief. I didn't come just to feed you, he added. I came to ask something. Ava raised an eyebrow. I'm opening a pop-up this summer. 2 nights a week. Just 15 seats. Real food. No sponsors. No drama. I want to build something honest. And you want me to? Cook with me, he said. Ava blinked. Even if just sometimes. Teach. Cook. Show people that quiet food can still be loud inside. Her heart pulled in 2 directions. One toward peace. The other toward purpose. She didn't answer right away. Later that evening, Ava sat alone in the school's test kitchen. The lights dim, the countertops gleaming. She moved without thinking. Chopping shallots, simmering tomatoes, toasting cumin, all for a dish she'd made 100 times and never once written down. And then she stopped, just stood there, in silence. She remembered fire, real fire, the one that stole her mother, the one that nearly stole her too. But standing here now, hands coated in spice, the soft scent of basil clinging to her sleeves, she realized something. The fire hadn't taken her. It had forged her. It had burned away everything that didn't matter. What was left was this. What was left was her. The pop-up restaurant was nothing more than a reclaimed flower shop tucked between a dry cleaner and a dentist's office. It had mismatched chairs, exposed brick walls, and string lights that buzzed softly overhead. No white linens, no velvet menus, just warmth. And Ava, she stood in the open kitchen, her hair pulled back, sleeves rolled, hands calm. It was the first night of Sabor, Luca's passion project, now their shared table. 15 guests sat at communal benches, strangers clinking glasses and leaning over to whisper guesses about what might be in the broth of the amuse-bouche. Luca moved through the space like a host at his own birthday party. Cheerful, electric. But Ava, ever the opposite, remained grounded, centered. Her energy drew people in without effort. She wasn't performing. She was inviting. The first course was hers. A dish called silencio, a delicate tamale stuffed with roasted corn and goat cheese, wrapped in banana leaf and served with a single spoonful of charred tomato consomme on the side. The menu didn't describe it, but when each guest took their first bite, the room quieted in unison. Luca, peeking from the edge, whispered to her, "You cast a spell." She didn't respond. She just plated the next one. By the second weekend, they had a wait list of 90 people. By the third, a food critic showed up anonymously and was moved to tears mid-course. But Ava didn't read the reviews. She didn't need them. Instead, she focused on moments. The old couple who fed each other from the same plate. The teenager who asked for the mushroom recipe and actually cooked it at home. The woman who said, "This tastes like my grandmother's kitchen." Those were the stars she collected now. One night, after service, Ava stepped out into the alley behind the shop, the city dim and humming. She leaned against the wall, sipping cold tea from a plastic cup. Luca joined her. "You've been quiet," he said. "I'm always quiet." "No, this is different." She looked up at the sky. "I used to think I had to prove myself every time I cooked. To chefs, to judges, to critics, to the ghosts in my head." He didn't say anything. "But now," she exhaled, "I don't cook to be seen. I cook to be heard. Quietly, deeply." He smiled. "That's why they keep coming." She turned to him. "You're good, Luca. You really are." He raised an eyebrow. "Is this your way of saying you'll keep cooking with me?" "I will," she said. "But not just for the food." "For what then?" "For what happens around the food." Inside, Matteo had cleared the last table, a towel tossed over his shoulder, humming a song Ava's mom used to sing. Ava watched him for a long moment. This boy who had once needed her for everything, now moving with confidence, carrying on tradition without even realizing it. The quiet flame she'd protected all those years wasn't flickering anymore. It was burning steady, strong, alive. Autumn came gently. The leaves in Manhattan's West End turned gold and rust, and a soft chill threaded through the city like cinnamon in warm cider. Sabor now hosted dinners every Friday and Saturday, with guests flying in from other states just to try the silent course, Ava's signature, now famous without fanfare. Yet Ava hadn't changed. She still walked to the shop every morning with a tote bag full of fresh herbs, still folded Matteo's laundry, still scribbled recipe notes in the margins of old novels instead of proper notebooks. The difference was, she no longer felt like she was hiding. One Friday, just before opening, she walked into the kitchen to find a letter sitting beside the prep board. The envelope bore no name, only a wax seal in the shape of a fork and flame. Inside, "Chef Ava, I watched your episode again last night. I never admitted this before, but you humbled me that day, not just as a chef, but as a person. You reminded me why I started cooking. Should you ever wish to return to the world stage, know that a seat at my table will always be open to you. Not as a competitor, but as a partner. Michel Reynard." Ava folded the letter gently and placed it in her recipe box, between a drawing Matteo had made of her first dish and her mother's old tortilla recipe, written in fading ink. That night, dinner service began as usual. Lights dimmed, wine poured, guests settled into laughter and anticipation. The final course was a new creation, Rescate, Spanish for rescue, a dish that combined elements of everything she'd learned and loved: French depth, Salvadoran soul, Japanese restraint. Served in a shallow bowl, it was earthy, comforting, and quietly exquisite. As she delivered a plate to one particular guest, a quiet young woman sitting alone, Ava paused. The woman looked up. "This smells like home." Ava smiled softly. "It is." The woman blinked. "Are you Chef Ava?" "No," Ava said, gently wiping a spot off the rim of the plate. "I'm just Ava." That night, As the kitchen lights dimmed and Mateo snoozed in the corner with an apron for a blanket, Ava stepped outside. The alley was quiet, the stars barely visible through the city's glow. She held her hands out, palms up, a few faint scars, a light burn from a rushed caramel sauce, calluses at the base of her fingers, imperfections, but they were hers, not from failure, from holding on, to food, to family, to herself. She exhaled. The fire had never gone out. It had just been waiting. Ava never opened a flagship restaurant. She didn't accept book deals or TV offers, and she never moved into a big kitchen with marble counters and stainless steel ceilings. She didn't need to. Instead, she kept Sabor small. 15 seats, 2 nights a week, no press invites, no reviews requested. People came because someone they trusted said, "You have to taste it to understand." Luca eventually opened another pop-up across the river, and Ava helped him train a new chef. Mateo got taller, louder, funnier. He won a citywide cooking contest at age 13 with a variation of Ava's rice and beans dish. When the judge asked him his secret, he said, "I taste with my heart first, just like my sister taught me." Ava still kept to herself. But now when she spoke, people listened. And when she cooked, it wasn't about proving anything. It was about offering something. An experience, a memory, a moment of stillness in a world that never stops moving. And every so often, when the steam rose just right, and the flavors danced together in silence, Ava would pause at the edge of the kitchen and smile, because she wasn't chasing greatness anymore. She was living it, quietly, on her own terms. Before we close, let's take a moment to pray. May we all be protected from arrogance and misjudgment, and may we all be protected from harm and injustice in our daily lives. May this story inspire us to treat others with empathy, no matter what they look like or where they come from. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more meaningful stories. Let us know in the comments. Have you ever surprised someone with your hidden strength? We'd love to hear your story. Thank you for listening, and remember, the strongest people often look like the quietest ones. Until next time, stay strong, stay humble, and stay true.